Okay, so question 13 gives us two equations, or two inequalities, sorry, and it asks us to identify the correct graph that shows the solution of those two inequalities. So I'm gonna go ahead and write those. First one is x minus 2y is greater than 4. Second one is 3x plus 2y is less than 4. So in order to find their solution, I first have to graph them, and I can't graph them until y is solved by itself, which puts it into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to need to manipulate both of these to get y by itself on one side of the inequality sign. Remember, if we divide by a negative, we do what to the sign?
Flip it.
Flip it. Okay. So on the first one, what's the first thing I'm going to move to get y by itself?
Divide by 2.
Nope.
Oh, you gotta
Subtract the x. So I get negative 2y is greater than negative x plus 4. Ebony, now what do I do?
Divide the 2.
Divide by the negative 2. So when I do, negative 1 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1/2. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. And I flip the sign. So now I have y is less than 1/2 x minus 2. Yeah.
When you go to college, like, if you say minus 2 instead of subtract 2, are they gonna look at you weird? It's always one.
Minus is more of a, it's not an action word, but versus subtract, which is, so minus is more of a descriptive word. That's the only difference. And it's just personal opinion. Okay, second equation. I want to get y by itself. What's the first thing I need to move?
X.
The 3x. So I have 2y is less than negative 3x plus 4. Then what do I do? Do I flip the sign? No, because I'm dividing by a positive 2. So I have y is less. Negative 3 divided by 2 is negative 3/2 x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And now I have my two equations that I'm going to go ahead and put on the graph. So when we're graphing them, we pretend like there's an equal sign. And then we'll find their solution set. So for the first one, I'm going to go ahead and color code these. My y-intercept is negative 2. So I go down to negative 2 on my y-axis and put a dot. My slope is 1/2. Rise over run tells me I'm going to go up 1 to the right 2. And I put a dot. I do it one more time just for good measure. And am I going to draw a solid line or a dotted line through those 3 points?
Dotted.
Dotted, because it is a single inequality. So see how well I can do this. That was terrible, but that's okay. Once I've drawn the line, I need to check my shading direction. How do I do that?
Compare the x to 0.
Plug in 0, 0 for x and y. Yes. So when I plug in 0 for y, I just get 0. When I plug in 0 for x, I get 0 minus 2, which is what? Is 0 less than negative 2? No. 0 is bigger than negative 2. So a good way to think about it is 0 to the left of negative 2 on a number line? The answer is no. So I'm going to shade the direction of the line that goes away from the point 0, 0. So I'm going to shade this direction. If it helps you remember, you can always put an X at where 0, 0 is so we know which direction I'm shading toward or away from. I go ahead then and I'm going to plot my second line. I'm going to say this one is the pink. This is the pink line. It has a y-intercept of positive 2, so I go to positive 2 on the y-axis. It has a slope of negative 3 over 2. Rise over run tells me I'm going to go down 3 to the right 2. So I go down 3, I go to the right 2. I just went down 2. Down 3 to the right 2, and I put a dot. I go down 3 to the right 2 again, and I put a dot. Am I using a solid line or a dotted line for this line? Dotted, because it's still a single inequality. So best as I can. And then just like before, I'm gonna go ahead and plug in 0, 0 for x and y. When I do, I get 0 is less than 2. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. So from this pink line, I'm gonna shade toward my green x. And then I look for the section where both of the arrows are kind of pointing in the same way or toward each other. And that indicates that it's down here. So this whole section right here is my solution. So which option is that?
B.
B. Questions on that?
And that one was 0.
I don't remember.
0, 2 is greater than 0, and then the other one wasn't right because it's 2.
Right.
Like negative 2 is greater than 0. That's
Correct.
not true. But
Yep.
2 greater than
0 is, yep.
yeah. Then you would draw towards it.
Number 13.
You mean 14.
14. I knew what I meant.
Which
Thank you.
one was that? By the way? Is it B?
Yes,
that looks
B.
like B.
Okay, so 14, I'm actually gonna have one of you do for me. So I have 13n to the 4th minus 9n cubed plus negative n cubed plus 1 plus 9n to the 4th, and then minus negative 10n plus 13.
Volunteers trivia.
Okay, I'm gonna let everybody work through it first, and then I will have somebody come up and do it.
Okay.
Ebony, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
The pen is on the podium behind you. Go. You can underline them, you can do whatever you want.
First. 22.
Yep.
Next step, you. You know what? It's already here.
Okay. Perfect.
Then put in the. This is minus, this will be 1 plus negative 15.
Negative, oh, perfect. Anybody get a different answer than what Ebony got? You shouldn't, because that is 100% correct.
Yay!
Good job.
So it's 22n4 minus 10n3 plus 10n minus 12.
So you have that.
Okay, when we're not comparing, it, just I
22
usually don't pull out a calculator.
Minus
If I see the correct answer,
10n3
then I will
plus
become.
10n.
Hey, any questions, concerns, or issues with that one?
Negative.
Negative?
I feel
Okay.
like I just have to say it because every time like a teacher asks that, it's just like a common thing for nobody to say. It's like that.
I like that.
Second.
I like it.
So that's gonna be 22n minus 10n3 plus 10n minus 12. Okay.
Yep.
Just wanna make.
Okay, 15 is an even more fun one.
Yeah,
So we have 3r plus 8 times 4r squared minus 8r plus 2. What am I doing with these two factors? Multiplying, and when we multiply things like this, we distribute or FOIL them out. So we're going to color code this just to make sure you guys are following through correctly. So when I color code this, I'm going to take 3r and I'm going to multiply it into all three of the terms in that second factor. So what's 3r times 4r squared?
12R cubed.
Good. Then I have 3r times negative 8r.
Negative 24R
24R
squared.
Then I have 3r times 2.
Plus 6R.
Moving to a different color, I have 8 times 4r squared.
32R squared.
8 times negative 8r. And 8 times 2.
Plus 60.
Then from here, all I have to do is combine like terms. Cole, is there anything I can combine with the 12r cubed? Okay, sorry.
I just said no though, so I'm gonna say.
I would agree with that. So let's let Cole answer the rest of the questions though. So 12r cubed is a loner. There were no other r cubed in this problem. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Let's finish this out first, then we'll come to that. Go ahead, Cole.
It'll be 8r squared
How'd you get 8?
plus 32 minus 24.
Perfect. So 8r squared, because he put these two together. Then what?
Put the 6r and the negative 6r together to get negative 58r.
Good.
And then plus 60.
If it helps, you can cross them out as you combine them to ensure you didn't skip anything. Ebony, what was your question?
It was explaining the answer.
Okay. Any questions on that one?
12R plus 8 squared minus 58R plus 60.
No major questions, concerns, or issues with that? Okay. Number 16. So for 16, I have 4b squared minus 40b plus 36. If I'm looking to factor this, the first thing I usually check is to make sure that it doesn't fit into any of my special cases, because if it does, I know how to factor those separately. This one is not any of those special cases. It's not a perfect square trinomial. It's not a sum or difference of cubes, and it's not a difference of squares. So that means I'm factoring this one just like normal. So when I'm factoring, what's the first step that I need to do?
What is it?
Divide by 4, take out a common factor. So all of those are divisible by 4, so I'm going to put the 4 out front. And when I do, I get b squared minus 10b plus 9. Then I'm going to go ahead and do my CB chart, which tells me I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to get 9, but add to get a negative 10. Anybody have any ideas? Negative 1, negative 9. Negative 1 times negative 9 multiplies into positive 9. Negative 1 plus negative 9 gives me a negative 10. So that one checks out, which means this turns into 4 times b minus 1 times b minus 9. Do I need to finish factoring this or solving this?
I think we're good.
We're good. It just said to factor it. This is factored. Questions, concerns, or issues with that one?
No. I need some time because I did that completely wrong.
Okay, I'll give you a minute. And we gotta move on. This answer key is on Canvas for you to look at any point. Okay, I did post it for you guys.
I think I did the next one right, but
Good.
this one I did wrong just because I forgot that you can just divide numbers, and then like you can like skip like everything and then just go to that if it's.
Yep. Okay, number 17.
I had the same numbers, just not the 4.
You have to have the 4 there.
Yeah, so
So I have 2n squared plus 7n plus 6. It is not a perfect square trinomial. It is not a difference of cubes or a sum of cubes. It is not a difference of squares, which means I'm doing normal factoring here. First thing I check for is there a common factor I can take out of all 3 terms? No, but there's still a number in front of my squared term. So what do I have to do with that number? Rainbow it into the third number, which means that I'm then going to have n squared plus 7n plus 2 times 6, which is 12. Then I factor it like normal. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to get 12 and add to get 7.
3 and 4.
3 and 4. So I write it as factors. I have n plus 3 and n plus 4. I'm finished, right? No. We have to divide out the number that we rainbowed. Okay, so since I multiplied a 2 into that third term, I now have to divide a 2 out of both of my factors. 3 divided by 2 does not reduce into a whole number. So to make it look nicer, I just kick that 2 over with my n. So I get 2n plus 3. And then 4 divided by 2 is 2. So my factors are 2n plus 3 and n plus 2. Questions, concerns, or issues with that one? No, we're okay? I'll give you guys a second to make sure we're caught up, and then we'll move into number 18. I know we're having so much fun. What you making that for? Phase 4, Camden?
Not about the problem. Wait, did you say we could use this like
On the final exam.
that's what I was
I'm feeling very generous when it comes to your final exams. Plus, you guys have me at 7:40 in the morning on Friday. So anything I can do to help wake you up or make you do better, I'm going to do. Short of, I will not give you any answers, but I mean, I'm going to help you prepare for it as best I can. Okay, question 18.
You have to like reduce those fractions when you have like a factoring one
Yes.
like that one. Okay.
Every time I see the word quadratic, I always think I have to use it.
Not every time, sometimes.
Oh.
Okay, solve the quadratic equation. This one, we're going to do with the quadratic formula because you guys could use the practice.
Well,
Okay,
that's good because I did quadratic formula. I was like
That's good.
quadratic. I'm like, that's, you gotta
can I use the quadratic formula the way it is right now?
no.
Why not?
It has to be like
It has to be set equal to 0,
Yeah.
and I can only have one of each type of term, so it needs to be simplified. So Grant, what can I put together and how would I do it? Okay, how would I do that?
Subtract one across
Which one would you like to subtract? Okay. Then what would I do?
subtract the 8 squared times
Yep, and I get what? Okay.
subtract the 2n across.
And then I just leave everything else and set it equal to 0, right?
Yeah.
Any major issues with that? All I did was move it around. We're not done. I just want to make sure we're okay up to this step. Okay, if I'm using the quadratic formula, what do I need to identify?
A, B, C.
A, B, and C. A here is 1, B is -2, and C is -8. And then I just take that and I plug it into my quadratic formula. So I'm going to have the negative of -2, which is +2, plus or minus the square root of -2 squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. Of course, from here we can simplify. -2 squared is 4. Then I have 4 times 1 times a negative 8 is a negative 32. Minus a negative 32 becomes plus 32. 2 times 1 is 2.
It's gonna be 2 plus.
Hold on, I want to make sure everybody catches up first. Everyone okay with what I did there? Okay, Miguel, what do I do next?
Then you have to add 4 to 32, that's 36, so it's gonna be 2 plus or minus 36.
So 4 plus 32 is 36. What's the square root of 36?
6.
Okay, if I could not take the square root of 36 as is, what would I look for? Or what would I do? Factor tree it and find the largest perfect square that divides out of it, yes. So we always look for simplified here. I do not want decimals on your test. I do not want decimals on your test when it comes to the quadratic formula. Fine. So when I do that, square root of 36 is 6. So I get 2 plus or minus 6 over 2. You're good.
Like, I was like 12 and everybody still looked at me when I did it.
Okay, so once I get this far, I separate this into 2 problems, 1 addition and 1 subtraction. So when I do addition, I get 2 plus 6 divided by 2. 2 plus 6 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. For subtraction, I get 2 minus 6 over 2. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Over 2 is negative 2. So my 2 solutions are 4 and negative 2.
When you put in those
Where do I put solutions to a quadratic like this?
And those fans go in the bracket.
In the curly, beautiful bracket.
Brackets when you gain one. Just brackets.
There you go. Negative 2 and 4.
You said that-
Some weird looking pads.
Time today, could we do one that doesn't have like a perfect square so that they could just have like.
This is going to be a
was it, and you said that if you have one that isn't gonna that's gonna turn into a decimal,
You copied.
you have to do a factor tree. You have to do. Is it just?
There are some in the notes or in here that we're going to get to. Number, I think it was 27. No, not 27, just kidding. 34 is one where we'll have to reduce it. Okay,
You have to do a factor tree. Right?
yes,
It
we will
would-
factor tree that.
It would just be like what we've been doing for quite a while.
The only time I'm okay with decimals is when we have a story problem. Okay, any other time I want the simplified radical. Okay, so that was number 18. Let's go ahead and do 19. So for 19, I'm most definitely not going to draw this for you. So I'm just going to tell you the coordinates of the points that we're looking at. So I went ahead and labeled the bottom left point as point A, and it had the coordinates negative 4, negative 4. Then the top right point was point B, and it had the coordinates 8, 6. And I wanted to find the distance between those 2 points.
Use the Pythagorean theorem.
The distance formula, which is derived from the Pythagorean theorem, yes. So my distance formula says that the distance between 2 points is your x2 minus your x1 squared plus your y2 minus your y1 squared, all under the square root. When I talk about x2, x1, y2, y1, x1, y1 is your first point. X2, Y2 is your second point. It does not matter which one of these you choose to be point 1 and which one you choose to be point 2. I would, of course, go ahead and label them just so we make sure we don't get confused. And then I just plug those values into here. So x2 here is 8 minus a negative 4 is plus 4 and then squared, plus y2 here is 6 minus a negative 4 becomes plus 4 and then squared. I go ahead and I start putting things together. 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 squared is 144. 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 squared is 100. So I end up with the square root of 144 plus 100. I put those two together, and what's 144 plus 100? 244. And then in my calculator, I just go ahead and take the square root of 244. 15.6. So 15.6 is the distance between these 2 points. How do we feel about that one?
Alright.
All right. Stupid.
Definitely did this wrong because I went to the Pythagorean.
You get the exact same answer you used.
Well, that's because this is the Pythagorean theorem, just as 2.4.
Oh, wow.
I literally said it comes from the Pythagorean theorem. It is the exact same. Okie dokie artichoke. Never heard that before? Oh my goodness. Showing my age, man. Showing my age. Okay. So number 20 is kind of the same thing, except it doesn't give you a grid and it just tells you directions and distance. Okay? So what we're going to assume is that we are somebody starting at that X. Okay? It says if a person starting at that X ran 15 meters west, which direction is west? On a cardinal left. So we're going to say from the X, they ran 15 meters this direction. Then once they hit 15 meters, they ran 5 meters south, which is down. If they started at the X and ended, at the square, I would like to know the distance that they would have to run from the square back to the X in a straight line, which is the exact same as what we just did. Okay, you can either do Pythagorean theorem from here, or we can do the distance formula again. Okay, so Pythagorean theorem says that I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where this hypotenuse right here is c, and each of my legs are a and b. It doesn't matter which one's a and which one's b. So since I have those distances, I just take those and I plug them in for a and b respectively, and then I'll use my calculator to solve it. So we're going to say a is 15, so a squared is 15 squared, plus b is 5, so b squared is 5 squared, equals c squared. I figure out what 15 squared is. 225, and then 5 squared is 25. 225 and 25 is what?
250.
And I have 250 equals c squared. Am I done?
No, it's square rooted.
I have a question. When we square root something, do we ever get one answer or do we get two answers?
One.
Two.
Technically.
Because if I were to, for example, take the square root of 4, I could get 2 or I could get negative 2. So it gives me a positive and a negative option whenever I take the square root of something. Am I going to be using a negative here?
No.
Because you can't have a negative distance. So just because we can get 2 answers doesn't mean that 2 answers work for our problem. That's always something you need to check. Okay, so to get c by itself, I square root both sides. When I square root, I'm only taking the positive version of that answer. So then what is the square root of 250?
15.8.
15.8.
Okay, I have a question. For the previous one, could you have done that? Would you have accepted like a Pythagorean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I did.
I didn't say distance formula had to be used. It was just the easiest one
Okay,
sometimes.
just because I did,
Yep.
what is it? I did the Pythagorean theorem, but then I noticed that I had messed it up because I had counted one extra
That happens.
square by accident, and then that threw off my thing by like 1 point.
That happens. Okay. If you would like to see that one done as a distance formula problem, that's how I did mine in your solution key. Okay. So if you wanted to see it as a distance, if that just made more sense to you, you can look at that there. Or you can watch this video again to see how we did it with Pythagorean theorem. Okay. So that was 20. Let's move on to 21. 21 is a nice, awesome story problem. So let's read this. Megan wants to go to Miami and stay at the Ritz-Carlton Resort. The cost is $399 per night. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Because I feel like that's gonna be important somewhere. So the hotel is $399 a night. She has decided that she needs about $1,800 to cover food and fun. I'm gonna write that one too. Because I feel like that's gonna be important. The round trip flight with American Airlines will cost her $207. So far, she has saved up $4,800. Okay, so this is all background information that it gave me. Then it asks the question for part A. It says, write an equation that would help Megan figure out the total number of nights that she could stay at that hotel with the money that she has already saved. Okay, so when we're doing this, the first thing I need to do is to find my variables, or what I'm trying to find, and then write an equation that relates them. So what am I trying to solve for in this problem? The number of nights that she can stay at that hotel. So what variable would you like to represent number of nights?
9.
N. Perfect. I like to use a letter that kind of correlates to the word they're representing. So N is going to equal the number of nights that she can stay at the hotel. Then I'm going to use this information to write an equation and fill in the values that I've been given. So I need to think about what her total cost is for this trip. Okay, so her total cost includes what? It includes $399 a night, right? So that's $399N plus what? $207, we're gonna break it down first. For her flight, and then what? $1,800 for food and fun. So then we go ahead and we kind of simplify this as much as we can. So we have $399 per night, and then I put the 207 and the 1,800 together. And when I do, I get 2,007. So this is our generic equation to represent how much money it would cost for her to spend N number of nights at that hotel. The second part of this problem told me that she already saved up $4,800 and she wants to know how far that's going to get her. Where's that $4,800 going to go in this equation? It's going to go where the C is, because that's a total cost that she is allowing for. So now I have $4,800 equals this equation, and I'm going to work backwards to solve for N, the number of nights that she can stay at that hotel for this amount of money.
So would that be the equation that we?
This is the equation, and then this is us solving it.
Oh, okay.
What's the first thing I'm going to move to get N by itself? 2007. I'm going to subtract that over. When I subtract it, I get what? Equals 399N. And then I'm going to do what? Divide by 399. When I do, Camden cannot answer. What do I get for N? We're going to do 2,793 divided by 399. What do we get? 7. So she can stay how many nights?
7 nights.
7.
A full week.
A full week. Perfect. Look at that. Any questions? Honey, we all do. We all do. Okay. Any questions on this specific problem? No, are we okay?
Yeah.
We're gonna do one more and then I'm gonna stop. Okay? I know, we're so excited. Yes. So this is question 22 and it's gonna be the last one we get to today. So it gives me 2 equations and it tells me to solve by graphing.
The answer for the last one was 7 9.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are we ready? Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is draw my graph because it says that I'm solving by graphing. I'm gonna color code my lines just like normal. My first one is the y equals -1/2 x minus 3. That's gonna be my red line. What's the y-intercept for that line? -3, so I go to -3 on my y-axis, and I put a dot. From that dot, I need to move whatever my slope is. So what's my slope?
-1.
-1/2.
-1/2. I like to apply the negative to the numerator. That's just a general rule for me. It does not matter however where you put it. So if I apply it to the numerator, that means I have -1/2, which means rise over run tells me that I'm going to go down 1 to the right 2. So I go down 1 to the right 2. If, however, you put that negative with the 2, then we'd have 1/-2, which tells me I go up 1 to the left 2. Either way, you're going to have the same line, so it's not really going to matter. Am I using a solid line or a dotted line?
Solid.
Trick question. It's an equal sign, so it's solid. We only care when it's an inequality.
I thought you meant when you had up.
So now we go ahead and draw our line, approximately. And then I move on to my second line.
That's -1.
So on my second line, Miguel, what is my y-intercept? -1, so I go to the y-axis, I go to -1 and I put a dot. My slope then is -3/2. So I go down 3 to the right 2. Or you could have gone up 3 to the left 2. Either way it would have worked. We go ahead and we draw our line. And then I'm done, right?
No.
It asked me to solve this system using a graph, which means I'm looking for the intersection point. Did my two lines intersect?
Yes.
Yes, they did right here.
Wait, how did they meet?
So I just need to know the coordinates for that point. So that point is 2, -4. And that's my solution. So I just need the coordinates of whatever point they intersected at. Questions, concerns, or issues with that one? Are we okay? Fantastic. So the good news is that we're done for today. If you have not worked on this, review it all. I highly suggest you continue or start because, your test is in 3 days. And you will not be in this class on Thursday.
Why?
Because